Now we come to the second part of the peripheral nervous system, that is the spinal nerves. Spinal nerves, there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves, यानी दोनों बाजू से nerves आएंगे. Here we can see only one-sided, but both sides there are nerves. Now how do they come? यहाँ पे vertebral canal है, वहां से nerve निकलता है, फिर foramina यानी there is an opening between the two vertebrae. This you can see these bones, these are vertebrae. ये दो बोन के बीच में से nerve आता है, correct? ये पूरा red is cervical nerves, blue is thoracic, green is lumbar and orange is sacral. है ना? There are 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar and 5 sacral. So far so good. Now how they are named? First let's say about thoracic. जो T1 है, ये वाला T1 है, most definitely first है blue में, और ये T2 है. तो T1 और T2 के बीच से जो आ रहा है is the first thoracic spinal nerve. Understood? वैसा सेम यहाँ पे देखते हैं, चलो. This is T9, काउंट कर लो. And this is T10. T9 और T10 के बीच से आएगा, वो रहेगा T9th spinal nerve, यानी 9th thoracic spinal nerve. Right? So far it is okay कि 12 है, इसके भी 5 है, 5 है, 5 vertebra और सब everything is corresponding. But cervical में एक गोचा है. Now what is the problem or extra thing in cervical is कि जो first cervical vertebrae है और second cervical vertebrae है, अगर हम सेम पैटर्न फॉलो करें जो thoracic, lumbar और sacral में किया, then the C1 has to be between C1 vertebrae and C2 vertebrae. But real life में C1 spinal nerve comes above of C1 vertebrae. Yeah, I hope you can see the pointer. I will just draw for you otherwise. ये मेरा C1 है, ये C2 है, opposite side का. C1 यहाँ से आ रहा है, that is above the first cervical vertebrae. बाकी सब जगह पे T1 कहाँ आ रहा था? नीचे, फर्स्ट thoracic vertebrae के नीचे से, पर cervical में first cervical vertebrae के ऊपर से आ रहा है. This is the only difference, which is why there are 8 cervical spinal nerves. Okay, the 8th one is going to come between C7 and T1, that is here. This is going to be the 8th cervical spinal nerve. This is a little confusing and hence examiner's favorite question to confuse you people. Okay. Here we have written the same thing, that although there are only 7 cervical vertebrae, there are 8 nerves because the first pair, this is C1 and C2, then the first pair leaves the vertebral column between the occipital bone and the first cervical vertebrae, that is this one, uska naam atlas hai, and the 8th pair leaves between the last cervical vertebrae, that is C7 and T1. इसके बीच से जाएगा हमारा C8. Right? I hope this is clear and easy to understand. Thereafter, the nerves are given the name and number of the vertebrae immediately above. I know तुम लोग को अभी तक तो समझ ही गया होगा what they're trying to say. So T1 के नीचे जो भी आएगा उसका नाम T1 रहेगा. ऊपर जो vertebrae है उसके हिसाब से नाम देंगे. This is just an explanation of how you state it to an examiner. Now we come to the topic of nerve roots. So the spinal nerve, which we just saw how many nerves are coming and from where they are coming, they come from both the sides of the spinal cord. So there is a left and there is a right spinal nerve, definitely. Plus each spinal nerve has 2 nerve roots. Okay, so you see this and this, these two are the nerve roots. and then ultimately it will become one nerve. Yeah, so this will be a right-sided and over here will be left-sided. Also, to give you another anterior and posterior view, the upper portion, that means over here, is the posterior view and this is the anterior segment. It's just like a direction. जैसे हमारे compass में कैसा होता है north, east, west, वैसा ये direction है. This is posterior, this is anterior. Okay, so far so good. To get a better understanding, you can see this picture. This is the vertebral body. This is anterior और ये spinous process है जो posteriorly रहता है. अगर तुम तुम्हारे back को touch करोगे तो you can feel the spinal process to some extent. So ये posterior aspect है. ठीक है, अभी हमको ये anterior posterior क्यों जानना है? क्योंकि जो anterior part है ना, that means over here, these rootlets you can see, they bring in motor information to a nerve. फाइन, जो एंटीरियर है वो मोटर लाता है और जो पोस्टीरियर है वो सेंसरी करता है. सो इन अदर वर्ड्स वी कैन आल्सो राइट इट एज द कॉमन एक्रोनिम यूज्ड इज DAVE, DAVE. This gives another perspective to the whole concept. पोस्टीरियर यानी हम डॉर्सल भी बोल सकते हैं, डॉर्सल व्यू, and anterior is ventral view. Dorsal and ventral are more commonly used than anterior and posterior. जो dorsal है that is related to afferent. Afferent यानी sensory. And जो ventral root है is related to efferent. Efferent यानी motor. Right? This much you've understood. So this, if you concentrate on this diagram again, this is the dorsal root. Dorsal से sensory आएगा. And this is the ventral. Ventral से motor आएगा. Or you can remember DAVE. So in general, each nerve, each spinal nerve में एक sensory component है और एक motor component है. So each spinal nerve is actually a mixed nerve because it has a sensory component as well as a motor component. Correct? Okay, so this is the same thing, just a better diagram. This is the sensory root. This is the motor root. Now here you see there is like a ganglion. Ganglion is collection of cell bodies. Just outside the spinal cord there is a spinal ganglion which is known as posterior since it is posterior, or dorsal root ganglion, consisting of a little clusters of cell bodies. Sensory nerve fibers passes through these ganglions before entering the spinal cord. So whatever sensations, यानी कि जो sensory है, तो it is definitely bringing sensation. Sensation वो ला रहा है either from muscles or skin or any place से वो sensation ला रहा है. उसके axons आएंगे. Once they will first attach here, form a synapse, and then later on they will enter the spinal cord. So ये क्या है? check नाका जैसा है. This is the check नाका, which is also known as posterior or dorsal root ganglion. Okay, the other things are just revision of what we've already done. Now these sensory nerves, they have to bring impulses from the whole body. इतना बड़ा body है. Plus we have so many spinal nerves. It would be right कि हर एक spinal nerve को एक certain area मिले कि तू ये area का impulse ला, तू ये area का impulse ला. Correct? So each spinal nerve has a specific area from where it will bring on impulses. Here in this diagram we are talking about cutaneous यानी skin का किधर से impulse लाएगा. You can see these specific color coded areas. They are known as dermatomes. जो ऊपर का पिंकिश ऑरेंजिश है that is all cervical. Then the greenish yellowish is thoracic. Here thoracic spinal nerves, ये information ये area से लाएगा. Then this blue part is lumbar, and then this dark blue and purple is sacral. You don't really need to remember exactly in this chapter, but what you have to know कि हर एक area का एक different spinal nerve है, और एक spinal nerve जो area को cover करता है उसको हम dermatome बोलते हैं. ये आ सकता है तुमको 2 मार्क क्वेश्चन में, व्हाट इज अ डर्मेटोम. यू कैन रिमेंबर एक दो नर्व्स का एक दो एरिया इफ यू वांट टू राइट एन एग्जांपल. Yeah, so dermatome can be asked as a 2 marker. Now this is a spinal nerve. ये उसका dorsal root है, ये ventral root है, दोनों मिलके spinal nerve बने, just बने ही वैसे ही divide हो गए. Now you see here there is a red or pink root which is the ventral root of motor. There is a blue root which is of sensory. ये area जहाँ पे मेरा भी pointer है वहाँ पे दोनों है, sensory as well as motor. When it is dividing तभी भी same है. It is a mixed nerve, completely far beyond as well. जब ये divide हो रहा है, you see this is going posteriorly, therefore इसको posterior ramus या branch बोल सकते हैं, या dorsal और posterior दोनों interchangeable terms हैं, और because this is going anteriorly इसलिए हम इसको anterior या ventral ramus बोलेंगे. Okay, so what do we have? We have roots, then we have spinal nerve, and then we have two branches, that either dorsal branch and ventral branch. The anterior rami, that is this one, the ventral branch, will supply the anterior and lateral aspect. Here we are talking about the anterior branch first. तो यहाँ पे तुम डायग्राम में भी देखो ये anterior part है और ये posterior part है. Definitely because ये anterior है तो ये anterior supply करेगा. Anterior and lateral aspects of the neck, trunk, upper and lower limbs. So what you can see here in this diagram is mainly done by the ventral primary ramus or the anterior ramus. Similarly, जो posterior है, जो पीछे जा रहा है, it runs backwards और फिर smaller medial and lateral branch में divide होएगा, और वो skin and muscles of small posterior area, head, neck, trunk and posterior limbs को supply करेगा. Now we come to the last concept of spinal nerve, that is the plexus. Plexus is little complicated as well कि उसका काफी types and all भी है. If it is an important question for your exam, then you need to do it in detail from your textbooks. Here it is an overview. Plexus में क्या होता है कि one basic word that you have to remember is regroup and rearranged. This. तो जो हमारा spinal nerves है, they are regrouped and rearranged. To make you understand that in a better way is तुम्हारे college में there are different sections. So there is A section, then there is B, C, ऐसा, और there could be different field कि engineering भी साथ में है, pharmacy है, MSc है, all these are sections, right? So these, let us say these are different types of spinal nerves. But ultimately, some students of each streams or sections of the class come together to form a club. तुम्हारा कोई council club रहेगा या rotaract club रहेगा, anything of your college. So this is regrouping. All of you are coming together, you're forming a group, and then फिर वो group में भी, that is in your rotaract club or council club, there is going to be different committees. So there's going to be a social media committee, there is going to be a cultural committee, there's going to be a sports committee, and so on and so forth. Correct? So this is rearrangement. This is regroup and this is rearrangement. ऐसा सेम कॉन्सेप्ट स्पाइनल नर्व्स में भी होता है. स्पाइनल नर्व्स क्या करते हैं कि सपोज दिस इज अ स्पाइनल नर्व, दिस इज second spinal nerve and this is third one. They come together, they join, and then some part of it, some nerve fibers go on to become a different nerve, some fibers of it go on to become a different nerve, फिर थोड़ा कोई और nerve बनेगा, कोई और nerve बनेगा, ऐसा. अल्टीमेटली एट एक्सट्रीमिटीज जो हमारा रेडियल नर्व है, अल्नार नर्व है, वो सब आर नॉट डायरेक्ट C1, C2, T12, T8, right? They are a mixture of a few spinal nerves. In case if you have any, not able to understand or difficulties, remember this example. Different sections, they come together and they are rearranged. Now rearrangement में कैसा होता है अभी. This is suppose social media committee. So सोशल मीडिया कमिटी में थोड़े ए के भी हो गए, थोड़े बी के भी हो गए, थोड़े सी के भी हो गए, राइट. और सपोज दिस इज द स्पोर्ट्स कमिटी, यहाँ पे छोटे हैं, द कमिटी इज स्मॉल, इट डजंट नीड मेंबर्स फ्रॉम ऑल द सेक्शंस. तो बी में ज्यादा स्पोर्ट्स के अच्छे हैं, तो बी के हैं और सी के हैं, ए के नहीं है, right? So this is again another form of regrouping and rearrangement, right? So this is what a plexus means. So in our body also there are plexuses. There are 5 large plexuses. I'll rub this off. Mm, on each side of the vertebral column. Uh, they are, we have cervical plexus, then we have brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, sacral plexus, and coccygeal plexus. This is again an important question, maybe for MCQ, or list the plexuses of your body. Brachial plexus is a little important one in case if you really think that it is or it has been asked previously in your question papers, then you need to do it as a full 5 mark or 10 mark question. Here we end the spinal nerve topic, which is the second part of the peripheral nervous system. This was relatively shorter, smaller, and easier than cranial nerves and autonomic nervous system. I hope you've understood.